The year is 1915. France has withstood the first shock waves of war. In Paris, the life of the boulevards, the life of the cafes, the theaters, the sumptuous markets, all that seemed threatened is thriving again. The German threat, which reached to within 25 miles of Paris the summer before, has now receded into stalemate on the ground and mild danger from the air. The stalemate will be broken. The army chief, Joseph Joffre, insists on it. Ponderous, resolute, he plans an all-out offensive, unaware of an impending new shock. It is one that France will feel for generations. It will turn a French town into history's cruelest battleground, a town called Verdun. It is December 1915. Kaiser Wilhelm's German army is preparing to strike at France, this time a death blow. It has been planned by the chief of the general staff, Erich von Falkenhayn, a brilliant strategist with a cruel imagination. It is endorsed by the Kaiser. It will be executed by the Kaiser's own son, Crown Prince Friedrich Wilhelm, a sportsman turned general. To them, Falkenhayn has explained, there is ground so dear to France that to save it she will throw in every man she has. Attack this objective, and France will be bled to death. The objective has been chosen. The plan is in motion. Along a quiet 8-mile sector of the line, the Crown Prince installs an assault force. 6 divisions, 1,200 guns. Some 50,000 men are hidden deep in underground barracks close behind the front. There they will await the signal to launch the offensive, to lure the manpower of France into Falkenhayn's deadly trap. Beyond these trenches is ground that Frenchmen will die to save, if Falkenhayn is right. The objective lies in a jutting salient of the front. One small town, about 150 miles east of Paris. A place of no special military value, only the value that men's passions will give it. The objective is Verdun. Verdun on the River Meuse. A backwater of this war, a landmark of past wars. Under German siege in 1871, its citadel surrendered, opening the gates to French disaster in the Franco-Prussian War. More than a town, more than a fortress. It has become a kind of armed monument, a symbol of defeat waiting to be avenged. Its garrison of 20,000 troops, its 3,000 civilians, are hostages of their own history. Verdun's main outpost, Fort Douaumont, is the most formidable of a ring of 20 forts that surround the town. Built after the defeat of 1871, they are massive and deep and hollow. Their turrets recently stripped of heavy guns, their underground vaults nearly emptied of manpower. Defense is scorned as unworthy and unnecessary. The French High Command insists, you will not be attacked. These men have been so assured. Commandant Revillon and his staff photographed at their command post in Fort Douaumont. The time is February 1916. On February 12th, the Germans are ready to attack, but a freezing snow intervenes. The French, now alerted to the danger, feverishly work on a new line of trenches outside the forts. And the German Crown Prince notes, "The god of weather suddenly deranged our plans. We were deprived of our best ally, the factor of surprise." February 21st, skies clear, ground thawed. The Germans attack. Against these waves of men advancing behind a deluge of artillery, the French respond with what they have. The famous 75s. Accurate, fast-firing, but light and unorganized. They are no match for the enemy's big guns. The French infantry, stunned in their trenches, have learned only one answer to an enemy attack: counterattack. Ground is more precious than lives. They are met by a new, a frightful weapon, the flamethrower. In 4 days, the Germans overrun the trenches. They are scaling the approaches to the forts. On February 25th, Douaumont falls. Nearly abandoned altogether by a mix-up in orders, it is captured by a single German sergeant, followed by a handful of troops. Behind the spearhead, the Crown Prince arrives to deliver his congratulations in person. A new generation of German invaders has breached the defenses of Verdun. Only 5 miles beyond Fort Douaumont, the town of Verdun is under bombardment by a huge naval gun made by Krupp and mounted on a railway carriage. The town is its special target. Before the fire lifts, nearly every building in the center of Verdun will be wrecked or badly damaged. Under pressure, Verdun panics. A frantic exodus gets underway. At headquarters of the French garrison, command is crumbling. Troops have been shelled by their own guns. A whole division has disintegrated. The reserves are being chewed up. Whether Verdun can be held seems doubtful. To give up Verdun seems unthinkable. The issue is settled by an order from the French High Command: yield no more ground. A decision made for the slow-moving Joffre by the Viscount de Castelnau, his second in command. Joffre sends in a new commander, General Henri-Philippe Pétain. His orders: to save Verdun. Cool and formal in manner, Pétain has the confidence of his troops, the grudging respect of his fellow generals. Among them, he is a heretic, an apostle of defense. He is careful with lives. In a single week, Pétain musters 25,000 tons of supplies, 190,000 poilus, the soldiers of France. Their route is a country road along a narrow-gauge rail track, the only road still open. France calls it the sacred route, la voie sacrée. It calls their mission the glory of Verdun. A British strategist, Winston Churchill, will call it in hindsight a waste and a frenzy. All during March of 1916, Verdun braces, behind artillery strengthened and regrouped by Pétain, behind forts that he has rearmed. Checked within sight of their target, the Germans begin throwing new divisions into the attack. Into the flames of Verdun, the Germans begin pouring a new kind of fuel, firing shells that release a new form of gas, a gas called phosgene, deadlier even than the chlorine they had introduced into warfare a year before. Philippe Pétain once wrote, "One does not use men to fight against materiel, but the defense of Verdun is consuming both in huge amounts. Attack is proving almost as costly as defense. 26 German divisions have shared in the burden of assault. A second fort has been captured, but Verdun itself still stands. It has only begun to exact its price." It is April 1916. To hold Verdun is not enough. Pétain is eased out, kicked upstairs to a higher command, to be replaced by Robert Nivelle, a more aggressive general, and Charles Monguin, a tough commander known as the Butcher. They do what Pétain has declined to do, not merely hold, but attack. "They have thrown us into the Inferno," says a diary found on the battlefield. Verdun's appetite for men, for materiel, seems insatiable. In 5 months, an estimated 30 million shells have been fired. In 5 months, 150,000 French wounded, 70,000 dead. This, too, is an estimate. Headquarters holds back the actual figures, then loses count. The lists cannot keep pace with the losses. What Falkenhayn predicted is happening. The very lifeblood of France is ebbing away at Verdun. But something else is also happening. To keep up the pressure, the Germans must suffer terrible losses of their own. It is not just France that is bleeding. The Inferno must be stoked, and it consumes whatever is fed into it. The battle assumes a stubborn, stalemated life of its own, independent of all plans, futile and formless, a character of its own, which the soldiers struggle to define in their letters and diaries. I came up as a volunteer. I wanted to see Verdun and take part in the great battle. 150 of us left the bivouac. By the time we got up to the line, there were only 30 of us left, and we had not yet met the enemy. Oceans of mud, dark skies, like Golgotha at the hour Christ died. No trenches up here, only holes, and holes blown in holes, all filled with the stink of the dead. A nightmare with no morning to come. There will be no end to this until the last Frenchman and the last German hobble out of their trenches on crutches to exterminate each other with pocket knives or fingernails. So prophesies a German writer. It is late summer. After a flare of costly new attacks that make little headway for either side, an awful calm has settled over the battlefield. It is the calm of exhaustion. It is the calm of death. The ground of Verdun has swallowed up the lives of some 200,000 men, French and German. 2 men for every single foot of front. A carnage, a debris. For the poilu, there is one avenue of retreat, permission, a furlough in Paris, a few days' respite from the Holocaust. To the poilu, Paris feels like a foreign city, speaking an incomprehensible language, talking about the long-awaited offensive of Joffre. It has finally been launched, with the British bearing the brunt of it. France can no longer afford the manpower. As for Verdun, the whole terrible truth has been erased by censorship. The poilu feels less at home in Paris than at the front. Verdun's heroes, more publicized than its losses, include a group of Americans, 30 airmen in the Lafayette Escadrille. With exotic mascots, with uniforms that are part French, part mail-order catalog, they serve as volunteers, and the sympathies of neutral America are enlisted with them. Their first big missions and their first losses are over a place of terrible memory, Verdun. By the end of summer, the career of Germany's military chief, von Falkenhayn, has become one more casualty of the battle. Appalled by his losses, the Kaiser selects Generals Paul von Hindenburg and Erich von Ludendorff to replace him. Their first effort is to call off the slaughter. There will be no more German attacks at Verdun. But France, unwilling to settle for the status quo, now prepares a counteroffensive. Planned jointly by Pétain and Nivelle, it is based on massive artillery, France's newest and heaviest guns. On October 19th, France goes on the attack. The Germans are evicted from the forts. Douaumont is back in French hands, its ramparts battered, but its prestige enhanced. France decides that properly manned, Douaumont would never have fallen. Defense will be restored to honor in a whole new wall of forts, named for a Verdun veteran, a man named Maginot. Ten months have passed. The Inferno has cooled. It has consumed 250,000 lives. The power of France has been diminished. For the rest of the war, for decades to come, by the ground of France, by the glory of Verdun.